welcome to the second episode of Testimony Thursdays. And our guest today is Anthony Lowe. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony, as Aubrey mentioned, and I am a Catholic. I have been a Catholic for a long, long time because my parents were Catholic. So even when I was in elementary school, pre-elementary school, I was already going to church. And I have never missed church most of the, unless there's a special circumstance. And so I have been involved, I have been involved with a lot of Catholic activities or church activities. A little bit about my faith journey. I have been involved with a number of religious and also non-religious activities. Religious meaning RCIA, Alpha, now faith studies, as well as other religious programs. And my non-religious activities at church has been related to serving food, having meals after masses, things like that, working in the kitchen. And more recently, in the last few years, I've been doing more building, repair, and improvement type work at St Anthony. And so, and I have been at many parishes for the last roughly 40 years, which is the duration that I've been in Canada. Originally, I came from Hong Kong when I was a pre-teenager, and ever since coming to Canada, I have been a parishioner at Holy Name initially, then St. Peter and Paul, Immaculate Conception, and also downtown Holy Rosary Cathedral. That's because I work across the street from the cathedral, and also St. Augustine. Now, the reason why I travel from one parish to another parish is mostly because my kids were in those schools, and I basically become a parent of that parish where my kids were going to school at. And I quite enjoy all the communities there, and I got to know a lot of parishioners, a lot of Catholics, and some very devout Catholics, and some kind of more like superficial type Catholic, just because their kids are going to that school. So that allowed me to get to know a lot of different personality in the church, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it in terms of my church involvements.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot of involvement in the church. And I've heard that a big event happened in your life. Could you kind of give us a little snapshot of what happened?
Yes, certainly, which was unexpected. I have been working for BC Hydro. Just a little bit about my background. I study at UBC in engineering, and later on also study business as well. And I have worked for BC Hydro for 20 odd years. And my most recent job at BC Hydro was to manage the replacement of circuit breakers in substations. Now there are over 100 substations in the province, and basically a substation is where a concentration of power where it gets distributed to all the users in that community or neighborhood. And the equipment that I manage for renewal is very important. These circuit breakers are used to operate the system, so that's what BC Hydro is to operate, to ensure that there's adequate electricity being provided to users, as well as in emergency situations, we can very easily transfer power from one location to another location. My workload has been really, really high for about, I would say, at least 3 years, possibly 4 years. And because of sustained workload, and unbeknownst to me, over time, I developed something called it's a type of stress disorder called conversion disorder. And when that happened, I lost all my memory overnight. So this was in October of 2014. I have been sensing a lot of stress for a good, I'd say, year. And there has been some presentation of that stress prior to having that major event when I had the conversion disorder. And the presentation of that of the situation that I was going through was that I would have out-of-body sensations. I would not be able to communicate briefly even when I was in a meeting, because my mind would be away from my body and I couldn't really speak because I have no control of my body, physical control of my body. But that only lasts briefly, maybe 10 seconds at most, and then my mind would come back into the body, and I would be able to carry on and conduct myself in a normal way. So back in October of 2014, what happened was one morning when I woke up, I lost all my memory. I didn't know I lose all my memory, but how I realized that I lost all my memory was when I looked at my wife, whom I've married by then close to 20 years. I don't remember her name. I couldn't remember who she was. All I know is she better be my wife. Otherwise, she wouldn't be sleeping next to me. I don't have any recollection of my house. It's not a very big house. I walk out of my bedroom. There's a washroom, okay, and I keep going. There's the kitchen, and then to the left of me, there's the stairs that take me downstairs, and there are two bedrooms beyond me, other than the living room, which every house has. So it's not a very big house, but I absolutely don't remember where the kitchen is, where the washroom is, how do I go downstairs, because I need to go downstairs to wash my clothes, for example. And beyond that, I've lived in Vancouver for 4 years, give or take, and I've completely forgotten what Vancouver was like. I don't remember which direction. I lived in kind of central Vancouver. So to the north of me is downtown, and to the south of me is Richmond or airport. I have no idea that Richmond and downtown are in those directions, even though I've lived here for by then 35 years. And I have lost the names of all my friends. So two things I completely lost is I lost the names of people and I lost the names of places. So that's what happened to me on that day in October back in 2014. So it was very devastating. I didn't even know how to begin to tell my wife. When I look at her, I don't quite remember that she was my wife, which was kind of funny.
Oh, that's a really shocking experience to have. And being a cradle Catholic, that must have stunted your faith somehow. So how did that affect your faith?
It did. It didn't come around in terms of faith until probably a week or two afterwards, because I was trying to find my bearing at that point in time. Like, imagine if you have absolutely no idea of this world that you lived in. All of a sudden, it seems like Earth is foreign to me. I've never been on this planet, and I probably came from Mars or somewhere. Mars probably a little too nice in terms of what we're used to refer Mars as. And so after I got my bearing, I said I couldn't go to work because I have no idea how to get to work. At that time, for a good few months, I had to be driven everywhere that I needed to go. I started to see a specialist, actually two specialist doctor at that time. So my family doctor said that you couldn't just see me anymore because you're beyond what I can help you, and you need to see specialists who can help you. And so I have to be driven everywhere I go, and I Let me pause a bit. What was the question again?
It's all good. The question was, because it's such a shocking event, how did that affect your faith? And you said it didn't affect your faith until
until 2 weeks afterwards. Right. Thank you.
No worries.
So after about 2 weeks or so, I started to understand why I am here, what earth or what this world is about. Then I started to realize that, hey, I go to church, I go to mass. There's something called the parish. At that time, I was going to St. Augustine in Kitsilano. And so I said to God in my prayers and also at mass, God, if you really care about me, why did you abandon me? Why did you? Because there's nothing you cannot do, God. And I'm just trying to make a living because I have a big mortgage to pay. And I'm trying to fulfill, as the average father, I'm just an average father. I'm trying to fulfill my obligation financially. I mean, there are many obligations. Okay, so I had to work very hard. My workload was very high, very stressful. But now you have created a situation that I no longer can work. I don't even know how to find my way. And I was beginning to get very mad at God because I have been a cradle Catholic. I have been going to Sunday Masses all my life, and I've helped out at a lot of parishes in my life. And is this the way you reward me? If I can say reward, or if this is the way that you care for me, if I can say that. So needless to say, I was quite mad. I wouldn't say I was very mad. I was quite upset at God for the way that I have been treated, or this condition that I got.
Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, I think I would feel a lot of frustration towards God if something like that happened. So how did you overcome that frustration towards God?
I didn't try to overcome. I was quite upset at God for months, not weeks, not days. I wouldn't go up and bang any of the statues in the church, or I wouldn't stop going to Mass. I kept going because deep in me, I still feel that God is present. I just need to give him some time, or maybe I need to give myself some time. But oddly and very miraculously, I must say, over the next half a year, because until I realized that without memory, there's so much that I cannot do. I need to rest and regain my memory. But because of a significant memory loss, a lot of things that I needed to do, including places that I need to go to, I wouldn't be able to do it on my own. What happened was there were many times where I had to go to different clinics and hospitals for tests, and also to see different professionals, medical professionals, health professionals. Sometime I would lose my way. I cannot drive anymore, not because I don't know how to operate a car, but because I can't find my place to get to those places. And I often would either walk or I take a bus. And there were a few times where I was completely lost. And one time I was only within 2.5 blocks from the office, the medical office that I needed to go to, and I couldn't find my way. And people would come to me and say, "Are you lost? Can I show you the way? Where do you need to go to?" Now, you might say that, okay, because you're lost, people will naturally realize that you are lost, okay, because you might be looking in all direction, which makes it very obvious that you are lost. But I wasn't really that obvious in terms of the way that I presented myself. But there would be people come up to me and say, "Can I help you? Do you need to find your way?" And I told them where I need to go to, and they would show me where to turn to get to the office, which wasn't that far away. Definitely no more than 2.5 blocks, maybe even 1.5 blocks away. And so that was one incident. and it happened a few times for various locations that I had to go to. Of course, it didn't happen every week, but over a period of about 3 to 5 months, it probably happened at least 3 times, if not maybe half a dozen times. So maybe once a month or something like that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I felt, which was somewhat quite remarkable, the other thing which I felt was quite miraculous was that there were a lot of males that I need to take care of. Even though I wasn't going to work, I had to rest right away. But there are a lot of males that I need to take care of, utility bills and things that I need to respond to. And my desk, which is probably maybe half the size of this desk, was completely piled with paper and mails. And I didn't even know how to manage all that mails, because if I receive a BC Hydro bill or a Fortis gas utility bill, I wouldn't necessarily know, okay, what are these bills for? Okay, and there's obviously a due date for all those bills that you have to pay. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, you name it. Okay. The strange thing is, on the day before a bill is due, there would be a force to kind of drive me to that pile of mess on my desk and say, just sweep through this pile of paper and you will find something that you need to take care of. Okay. So I did, and lo and behold, here's a BC Hydro bill. It's due tomorrow. Okay. If I can't pay it, if I don't know how, at least I can tell my wife. I can alert my wife, hey, we need to pay this. Or I can ask one of my kids, hey, how do I pay a utility bill? Okay, or a Visa bill, which, as you know, if I don't pay it, the interest can be quite substantial. Yeah, hefty. And I don't want to, pay a penalty if I can avoid it. Okay, and that also happened a few times because my desk was so messy that I think it took about 6 months before I was able to clean it up. So imagine 6 months of bills and mails that I need to sort through. And those are the two things that really stood out initially for the first few months, where I was really hopeless, I should say.
Did you think that they were from God, or did you think that they were coincidences? Because they're significant things and they happen quite a few times, but a lot of people today, they would just brush it off as, oh, it's a coincidence.
Now, that's what I would ask myself too, whether it's a coincidence or not. Okay, but I found that it's more than a coincidence, because coincidence wouldn't repeat so often in such a short period. 6 months is not long. And the help that I received from God was quite miraculous, if I may use that word again, because if it's just a coincidence, how can there be so many coincidences all within a matter of 3 to 6 months that I experienced? And so I can only attribute it to God. And my experience was not only, I find it very lucky for me to actually get those matters done that I needed to do, but I also get a sense of peace. And there is, and I'm not going to use the word there seems to be this voice, but there is this voice gently in the back of my mind reminding me, today you need to do certain things, okay? Because those are musts now, because if you don't do them, there will be consequences. Okay, not necessarily major consequences. Well, if I have to pay for a penalty, so be it. Okay, it's not the end of the world, but I'd rather not have to pay a penalty. Okay, but there are these voices.
Yeah, that's actually really amazing to have God's intervention and to have a sense of God being there. Have you ever asked why that happened to you? Because sure, these are really significant, small things that God intervened in, but you know that He's all good and all powerful. Did you ask why God would make something happen to you, and why not just heal you right away?
I didn't really ask God in terms of why these things happen. I also never question God in terms of why he does certain things and why he doesn't do certain things, and I don't doubt his ability. To me, God is almighty. He's all powerful. What I sometimes doubt may not be the best word to describe it, is what I sometimes question is why God didn't intervene, why God did certain things, why God made it so difficult for me. Because a snap of his finger, he could turn something around 180 degrees. Okay. However, one of the things that I have always asked myself to bear in mind is trust God. That is a very important word. If you believe in God, if he's all powerful, and more importantly, he is loving, all loving. He cares about us. If he doesn't care about us, he would not have created us. He would not have created me if he doesn't care about me. He wants me to succeed. He wants me to enjoy this world that he has created for me. But it's not living in this world, carrying out my life is not going to be a merry-go-round. It's not going to be a cinch where I don't actually need to put in any effort. I would have food on the table and I would enjoy every day as if there's no end to this enjoyment. Okay, but I still have to put in my work. I still have to put in my work to make sure that I am fulfilling the journey that he has planned for me, but I need to carry it out. And so I've never questioned him, but I sometimes would feel frustrated when we're sitting in this room very close to the stage of our church. And one of the things that I'm just going to use this example very quickly. We had a flood here 2 years ago, okay? And there was a foot of water in the basement. And the water, of course, was underneath the stage as well. And the stage, because of the humidity of that flood, a lot of the wood were damaged on the stage. So we needed to replace all the wood on the stage. And one of the things that we were told by the company when we replaced the stage was that the humidity was just too high. Okay, and that's because even though the water that we can see outside on the floor where the basement hall is all dry, but inside underneath the stage there's still a good 1 to 2 inches of water. Okay, so I said to myself, how am I going to make sure that the water is gone so that we can get the warranty for the new stage that they are replacing for us? Okay, so what I did is I crawled underneath the stage and I was scooping water until I dried the entire floor underneath the stage, which took a long time, probably a good 5 hours. And at the time, it's dark underneath, there's no lights underneath. I was lying, the stage is no more than 2.5 feet tall. And so I was scooping water and I said to God, I was praying too, partly. Maybe sometimes I was complaining to God and say, God, why did you make me do this? I could have gone back to work and I wouldn't have to take care of this building anymore. Okay, but I kept going because I know there might be a chance if I get enough water off the space underneath the stage, we would not. We would not. If I get enough water off the floor underneath the stage, we would meet the criteria of having the warranty. Otherwise, they wouldn't give us the warranty if the humidity level is still too high. Okay, so while I was doing that, I was praying, and after about 5 hours, I got this much water from underneath the stage gone. And then the next day when they came back and they remeasured the humidity, and they said, oh, the moisture content is now low enough for you to meet the warranty. So we will give you the warranty after all. And I felt, oh, gee, good thing I did what I did. And it was just in the nick of time too, because there wasn't a lot of time between them coming to replace the entire floor to the point that I got the space underneath the floor dry. okay, for them to come back to remeasure the humility. So I can only attribute that to, okay, there is this push from God to tell me, do this, because it will help. Don't give up, okay? And there are other instances like that, but that's the only one I can remember that was quite significant, because the word was kind of, I thought it was kind of harsh.
Oh, that does seem harsh. Yeah, no, for sure. That's so great, and I love that you said that, trusting God and knowing that He's all powerful and all good. That's really amazing to hear. And is there any advice you want to give to somebody, say that they might have experienced something big like that and they're feeling frustrated?
Well, thank you for asking that, Aubrey, because it's one thing to say trust God, is another to actually carry out that trust. And over the last few years, where I've been at St Anthony to do some of the building repair and improvement work, there are many activities and projects where it didn't go the way that was planned. And of course, as most of you know, if things aren't happening the way it's planned, it can lead to a lot of frustration. And I've learned one of the things that I need to do is, if I put in the necessary time to do the work that I believe is best for the activity, that's all I can do for that day. Don't worry about it. If you cannot finish everything that you set out to do, if things didn't happen the way you planned it, and there were a lot of activities, a lot of jobs, work that didn't happen the way I planned it. And sometimes I would just keep going. I would miss dinner. I would not go home until late in the evening. There were times that Father Justin would call down from his rectory upstairs saying, "Who's down there?" And that's me at 10 o'clock at night. "It's me, Father Justin. I'm still working. Don't mind me. I'll lock up and set the alarm." "Oh, Anthony, no problem. Take your time." Okay. But that means I'm having a very, very long day. There must be something that's holding me back, allowing me to leave the office. But I found that it's actually better if you say that I've put in the necessary time. I may not be able to get any more work done, or I may not actually have a solution. I'm stuck. Just go home. Don't worry about it. Put it behind you. Have your dinner. Watch TV. Read a book, or whatever you enjoy doing. Okay, and say a prayer. It doesn't have to be a long prayer. Even one Our Father or one Hail Mary. And say, "God, I've done everything that I could. I am gonna leave it in your hands." Okay, from my experience, often, not every time, the next day a solution will present itself. Now, it may not be a solution that I need to carry out. Someone could come and actually fix the problem that you had. A very small example, the door that leads into the kitchen, it wouldn't lock, and I tried to fix it. Okay, so I made it lockable again, and after a few days it broke. Okay, and I said, "I only fixed this less than a week ago, and it broke." And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna fix it again in the very near future." It's just like I've tried to fix everything in this church. And guess what happened? I think the next day, or at most 2 days afterward, someone came and fixed the lock, and it was working even better than when I fixed it. So that tells me, don't get too frustrated with problems. Okay, if you can't spend any more time on it, if you don't necessarily know the solution to it, just let it be and say a prayer and leave it with God. Now, that's not to say saying a prayer will resolve everything. Saying a prayer, I have found, is a way to find peace in yourself. God doesn't really need us. Okay, we pray not because God will be any better if we pray, but when we pray, if we are praying properly, not, and this is sometimes I fall into this. What's the word I'm looking for? I also fall into this habits. I also fall into this habit is when I'm praying, I'm only half there or maybe 1/4 there. The other 3/4, I'm thinking of how am I going to fix that lock? How am I going to address that water issue? Okay, but God doesn't want us to be only praying half-heartedly. God does not want us to pray half-heartedly. God wants us to pray and spend time with Him, not for His sake, but He wants you to find greater peace in your life. So when I'm praying, I try to focus on the time that I'm spending with God. God is all loving and all kind. And think of the person who loves you most is spending time with you, that you care about most. Use that same sensation or feeling and relationship that you have with God and say, He cares about me, He loves me, I trust Him, I'm going to spend some time with Him. Even if it's 30 seconds, spend some time with Him, you will find greater peace in your life. Okay, and that is something that you cannot easily get from any kind of activities that you might enjoy doing. And that's one of the things that I have truly experienced, at least since my stress disorder over the last 4 years, over and over and over again. It never failed me in terms of finding that peace. I'm not saying that praying will necessarily lead to a solution to all your problems, only sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Yes, I agree. Prayer is very powerful. And I want to thank you for saying your yes and being really vulnerable and sharing this major event that happened in your life. So that'll be it for today. Thank you so much, Anthony, for joining us. And I hope you can tune in next week to see who our next guest will be.
Thanks. God bless. Take care.